Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Bill Hirschman. I'm the chief critic and editor of FloridaTheaterOnStage.com. And I want to welcome our regular panel, the producer, actress, director, Iris Acker. Then we have the veteran thespian, Karen Stevens, and the multi-talented, multi-hyphenate, Michael McKeever. Words that all start with the word M. Anyway, more importantly, I want to thank everyone for coming, especially our guest today, Jim Hammond. Jim here is one of the primary practitioners of puppetry in South Florida, and we're here to have him talk about this centuries-old art form. So one of the things I'm very curious about is how this centuries-old art form manages to not only persist but endure in a 21st century where there are video games and children with short attention spans.
Well, first off, thank you for having me here. This is really exciting. But the question you're asking is something that puppeteers have been concerned about. And a lot of live entertainment, theater professionals have been really concerned about how do short attention span kids accept what we do. What's good about puppetry is we're a highly visual art form. So we're able to take unusual concepts, unusual designs, transform them with our imagination, and turn them into something pretty spectacular. So if you were just presenting a piece with two actors on stage and you wanted to add that eye candy, you can do that with a puppet.
Now today, puppetry is somewhat different. While the basics are the same, puppetry has evolved and become more sophisticated in the last 20 or 30 years. Can you talk about, for those people who haven't been to a puppet presentation or don't think they've been to one, discuss where the art form has gone? How has it changed?
In the early 20th century in the United States, there was this big movement to turn puppets into something specifically for kids. So American audiences assume that puppetry is just a kid's form. It's not. Puppetry in its purest state goes back to the ancient storytellers and mystics who would connect with adult audiences. It just wasn't kids. Then we go through the movement in the US and the transformation of puppetry as perceived as primarily just a kid's art form. And that gave a little bit of a prejudice against what puppets are and what puppets can be. Then came along this great person named Julie Taymor. Julie Taymor, director of a gazillion fantastic operas, a gazillion fantastic performances at ART, but her mainstream hit was, of course, The Lion King. The Lion King brings together all of the ancient forms of puppet theater, whether it be Indonesian shadow, whether it be Japanese bunraku. We're hearkening back to 200, 300, 500-year-old styles, 1,000-year-old masks from Africa and Indonesia. This is all part of who we are as human beings. This is all part of our ancient culture. What happened 20 some odd years ago when she opened, a little less than 20 some odd years ago when she opened the show, was now adult audiences are as entertained and realize that puppets can be as entertaining as kids always have known.
And Jim, you worked with Lion King.
I did work with Lion King.
Oh, I think that's fascinating. Yes. And you still are.
After we tape this, Iris, I'm actually headed to the airport and flying to Louisville because I'm going to be working backstage at Louisville on Monday.
What do you actually do backstage?
There is a puppet department with Lion King, so there are 3 traveling puppet masters who travel with the show, and we keep Julie Taymor's original creative vision alive and well. So we're somewhere between, I don't know, a veterinarian and a prop master. It's a really strange combination.
Is it simply a matter of maintaining the puppets and making sure that they're not falling apart, that they're still clean, or is it a matter of actually working with the actors to make sure that they handle the puppets the correct way.
In its most mundane way, you are literally wiping Simba's makeup off the Simba mask in the most mundane way. In the most dynamic way, you are taking the original designs, drawings, color renderings from Julie herself and Michael Curry, the co-designer of the puppets, and recreating their original vision. That's one really high art moment and opportunity while you're on the road. The other is when a new dancer or actor comes out on the road and they are going to be the giraffe, and you train them for a month, month and a half in how to become that puppet and work with the puppet and understand the nuance. Every puppet is designed in the 10 shows around the world that Lion King has, all the same. But each one has its own slight difference in weight, slight difference in feel. So an actor who played the giraffe in Madrid, when they come to Louisville, it's going to be a slightly different feel, puppet to puppet.
Interesting.
Can anybody do that? Can I be a puppeteer?
You're going to be, after our training session, hopefully you will be well on your way. I guess my question to you is, can anyone be an actor? Can anyone be a dancer?
Touche.
Yes,
Yes, everyone can be a dancer in the same respect that everyone is an artist. Every human being, no matter what you're doing, has that creative spirit inside them. That's part of what it is to be a human being on this planet. To be a professional puppeteer is a tough road.
Well, what does it take? What kind of skills do you have to either have or develop to be a professional or successful puppeteer?
Once you enter the arts and you want to have a career in the arts, everyone on this stage, everyone who is probably watching this right now, number one, it's the passion. It's that drive inside of you. If you are not willing to work 80 to 100 hours a week focused on this, and everyone on this panel knows it, then you're lost. That's the first step.
Are there some natural talents or abilities like hand-to-eye coordination or that help?
Yes, but I'd even go further back. The understanding that, may I have your coffee cup?
Oh, sure, of course.
Okay, so the understanding, you're a kid, you're wandering through life, transforming into adult, finding your way. And when you see an object, when you see a coffee cup, most people just see a coffee cup to pour water or coffee into it. But as a kid, the kids who are puppeteers start off by seeing, this is a nose and this is the head, and begin transforming this in our mind's eye into something completely different. A coffee cup is not a coffee cup. A coffee cup is a plethora of characters that can tell a story for an audience. That is the next step. So the passion needs to be there, but that instinct to transform things that are just regular objects into something else, that's the next step.
That's the Lady in Beauty and the Beast.
Wait, look.
That's right.
There you go. See, I did it.
You're a puppeteer.
What drew you? What drew you to puppetry?
I have three stories that drew me to puppetry, and they're all relatively young. The first one, which is more or less kind of a funny one, is my mom had a bit of a fear of ventriloquists and puppets. So, as you're a teenager and you're rebelling, puppetry seemed a natural rebellion position for me. So that's story number one. Story number two. When I was 17 years old, I went to a Six Flags amusement park with my kid sister, who was, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10. And we saw a Jungle Tales show, which was a bunch of puppeteers doing a bunch of goofy vaudevillian-style puppet pieces in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. And I loved the show, but more importantly, I was flirting with the folks on stage. So I drug my 9-year-old sister back to the show. 2 weeks later, they hired me as a puppeteer.
Wow. Wow.
And I was a puppet theater manager at 18, right after the following year, which was really, really awesome. But the real story is I grew up in a small town called Hoosick Falls, New York, in upstate New York, not too far from Albany. Hoosick Falls. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss land, but it's not. Small town, maybe about 3,000 people, and I was the quirky kid who was building puppet shows in my backyard.
I love it.
And we had a puppet repertory company in our backyard, and we would put on 2 or 3 folk tales with puppets that I built from sticks and stones and stuff that I could find around the yard. Why? How did that happen? I don't know. I mean, why are we all artists? Why have we followed this path? There's something inside of us that happened early on, and it's the only path we can take.
But from there, you eventually grew into building this company, Puppet Network.
Puppet Network, yeah.
Talk a little bit about what the range of what it does and where people can find you, for that matter.
Okay, sure. So I officially left the road in 2008 from The Lion King after having over 6.5 years on the road.
Wow.
We found a capital investor to start a puppet company in 2009, in the height of a very dynamic, exciting economy. And that capital investor helped us get enough money to start up. Most of what we did on the front end, the first 3 to 4 years, is we built, designed, and fabricated scenery, props, and specialty costumes for folks like Stephanie Anson at Miami Theater Center, and Broward Center. We built several pieces for. Just across South Florida, we built primarily for local live entertainment companies.
You built
a little bit of
you built the
video
costumes for Inanna, the flying man, and
Yep, Anzu.
Wow.
Yeah.
And something else.
So the mask work, the giant puppet work,
Wow.
we rebuilt a lot of puppets and costumes for them. So while we were doing that, we were also producing our own shows and working on a couple of additional commissions. We've always been leaning more towards eventually going into video production and trying to get our art out into the world. So simultaneously, we're creating for clients, we're also creating for ourselves and for our audience. One of the overlaps that happened, recently we had a commission from the city of Fort Lauderdale. They, for 50 years, were trying to get the All-America City Award. They were a finalist about 12 times. They never broke the top 10.
What exactly is the All-American?
It's a national award that talks about civic engagement. It's a very prestigious award that's attached to grants. A few cities in South Florida have gotten it before. Fort Lauderdale, unfortunately, never got it. Last year, they were a finalist. They didn't get it again. City manager heard about me. He got on the phone with his staff in a big staff meeting. He said, "Get on the phone, call the puppeteer. Maybe he can make this happen."
Really?
So we got a commission, and the commission was to tell the story of Fort Lauderdale. And we created a character, this character right here.
Oh, good.
His
Show
name
him.
is Stranahan.
God, I love
And
him.
Stranahan is based on. There's Stranahan
Oh, is he-
right there.
Oh, Stranahan.
So Stranahan was the spokesmodel or spokespuppet for the All-America City delegation for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and he told the story of a grandfather and a son on Sistrunk Boulevard who are talking about the history of jazz and culture and arts and how Fort Lauderdale has changed. And Stranahan just went along for the ride and told the story. And what's awesome is after 50 years of trying to get this award, we actually got #1 in the entire
Yeah.
So the point is, if you have something you need done, hire a puppeteer.
But
Hire a
you also
puppeteer
I
with
love
a
'em.
really adorable dog.
We were actually commissioned to
Really?
to create this dog specifically
Really?
for it. Yes.
Well, here's a question. When you create a puppet like that, as the puppeteer, do you become that character? Are you the gentleman or the person who operates the puppet? Or do you have a staff or a cast of people that you work with?
Well, with that particular commission, we sent over 50 people in the delegation, including my puppetry staff, and then we had a puppeteer who came along with it. Depending on the show, I may be the puppeteer, or I may just be the producer, director, or puppet designer.
But like he asked, which I thought
love
was
it.
really good, does a puppeteer have to be, in a sense, an actor? a vocal actor, a physical actor, or is it just something more technical than that?
You know, it's funny. I think we all enter the theater world finding a specific role for ourselves because we like to collaborate. A lot of puppeteers, they love the collaboration, but they have their very specific vision about all of it. So they want to be the designer, the builder, the puppeteer, the script writer. And to be quite frank, that's usually where it fails with a lot of the puppet shows that are out there. The most successful puppet shows are the puppeteers who say, you know what, I'm not really a script writer, so I'm going to hire a script writer. You know what, I'm a really strong builder and designer and concept artist, but I need to hire an actor or a dancer. Those are the ones who, the puppet shows that are most successful. And to get back to Julie, that's really what she does incredibly well, is she's a great collaborator.
She's smart. What marionettes? You don't want me to talk about?
No. It's no. Please. Marionettes are a whole different beast. but please.
And you don't indulge.
You know, the world of puppet theater has a lot of little niches. Ventriloquism is one. That's definitely puppetry. Marionette is another. That's definitely puppetry. Even video puppetry versus live entertainment, they kind of break into different groups. Marionettes are incredibly difficult and require a lot of science and a lot of patience, particularly with those strings. If a client comes in and says, you know what, I really want a marionette, I send them to the folks who I would recommend either in North Carolina or in LA.
Wow.
But no, I keep my distance from. You got to know. You got to know what you can do, and in marionettes, I'm not. That's not my strong suit.
But another thing that you're doing, I was doing my homework, that you also build a piece and then we'll rent it out. Like, if I understand, you have an Audrey 2 for Little Shop of Horrors?
Oh, we actually, that was something we used to have, but we sold off. Those Audrey 2s, they last for a period of time, and after they get beaten up, they do. After you send them to a couple of high schools, they do get beaten up. But no, that Audrey 2 is now up in New Jersey, so we don't have that in our stock anymore. But we do have other large-scale puppets. Like we have a 40-foot wide Green Man puppet for parade, so a Celtic Green Man character. Our largest puppet collection is directly related to our Day of the Dead celebration, which we founded.
Sure.
That we have approximately 40 giant puppets from 9 feet to 16 feet tall.
Wow.
And our largest one is a 16-foot tall Frida Kahlo skeleton puppet.
Wow.
And that's operated by 5 operators.
So
we do rent those out.
So they're not all fluffy dogs. You have people like this character here.
Oh, this guy right here? So I was talking a little bit about moving into video. And we were fortunate, Puppet Network was fortunate to receive a Knight Foundation grant 2 years ago for our festival work with Day of the Dead. One of our pitches that we're working on with them and with other organizations is we want to create something puppet related that can speak to the arts community in South Florida. So we created this guy right here, and this is Pablo Cube. I'm not the puppeteer, I'm Pablo. And Pablo, we've created a show that's a short form interstitial piece, less than a minute long, where Pablo goes into art studios, visual artists, and interviews them about their art. Interviews them about their process. So inspired a little bit by Iris.
I'm listening, go ahead.
Inspired by Iris, where you connect to the artists, the theater artists, we're connecting with the visual artists with this show right here.
Wow.
And Pablo, we've shot 10 episodes so far, and we're hoping to get 12 in the can before we release it.
That's great.
So that's Pablo.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Did you design?
Yeah, I designed it, I built it with my crew, and the puppeteer is actually from the Boston area. His name is Ed. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And what's really interesting is in an interview process, quite often the lights come in, the cameras come in, and people get really nervous. So you're talking to the artists, and the visual artists are often quiet people who want to do their painting, their solo work. You get the lighting in there, you get the full crew. It's overwhelming. Puppet comes out of the bag, they relax, they laugh. It's a very different experience, and we're targeting kids with this, so kids can really have a keener understanding of what it's like to be an artist and have a career in the arts.
Speaking of kids, Jim, you were saying that a lot of what you do is live entertainment. Who are your audiences? In other words, if I had an event that I needed a puppeteer to work at, how would I get a hold of you, and what kind of shows do you do?
Okay. Well, how to get a hold of me is there's this magical world called the Facebook.
I think I might have heard it.
Yes. You may want to look it up.
Okay, Facebook.
Facebook. Finding Puppet Network on Facebook is the best way. We do have a website, puppet-network.com.
Perfect.
But best bet is through Facebook. That's where most up-to-date information is.
Facebook for that. It's also very therapeutic. For the children, I've seen where children will talk to that puppet and won't talk to their doctor, let's say, or the dog could say to them, "What really hurts you?" And yes, it helps autistic children as well, I've heard.
You're tying into something really, really special about the puppet. We had a workshop in our studio less than 2 years ago. And it was primarily adults who were there, but one mom brought her autistic kid. Sweet, sweet kid, very quiet, very nervous, looking at his hands. And it was an opportunity where everyone could pick up a puppet and introduce who they were. This kid didn't say a word for about 45 minutes. He put a puppet on his hand. He was the loudest voice in the room. It's extraordinary. The puppet is magic. The puppet is safe. I talked a little bit before about puppets being introduced as children's entertainment. There's a great positive component in that.
Yes.
And that opportunity is there, and it's rich and wonderful.
I think so.
A couple of things real quick. When you were talking about workshop, we had talked just before we started about the fact that you can take almost any object and find a way to make it come alive. You want to talk a little bit about that? And then I want you to put us through our paces real quickly.
Okay. Well, with the workshops, we do workshops throughout South Florida. In theaters, we actually, it's funny, we just did a workshop for the Fort Lauderdale Alliance. And so typically when theater artists do workshops, it's for other theater artists, or it's for students, or folks who are educators. The folks in my audience were bankers. There was a bank president in there. There were, I think we would call them suits, okay? Several lawyers.
So how did that go?
What's extraordinary about it was afterwards I asked the first person who produced the event, what's your thought? And they said they were enthralled. And you know how they could tell that they were enthralled? You said, puppets up. And every single one of them put their puppet up. Okay? If you're ever in a room with executives, they're on their Facebook or they're texting. They're really focused on this because when you're worth $500 an hour, you're really focused on what that next message is. When I said puppets up, it was no different from being in a third grade. Every puppeteer put their puppet up.
Speaking of which, I want you to put us through our paces here.
So,
you had us.
Puppet Network brought in these little puppets right here. So put your puppets on your hand. And here we go, puppet up. And what we have here, these are called peepers.
I get 2 heads.
You are a rebel. You are.
Yes, she is.
ambidextrous.
So puppets up. These are Peepers puppets, and these are from a friend of mine named Hobie Ford out of North Carolina, and he designs and actually fabricates them in the United States. So if you see these elsewhere, don't get them through Hobie in North Carolina. But these Peepers puppets, these are actually used by a lot of puppet companies when they want to audition puppeteers. So I'm going to give you really quickly just a few tricks that are going to get you into being a puppeteer. So this is a naked puppet, all right? So nothing bad about that, but you have your naked puppet. First thing you have to think about is position, all right? So your position is upright, okay? And don't curve over your fingers. Your fingers should be straight out, just like that. Good. Position's number 1, okay? Number 2 is focus. Every director in here or every academic in here has talked to their students about focus. So focus up on Jim.
On Jim?
On Jim. Focus on Iris.
Oh.
Jim. Iris,
Hello.
home audience.
Hey, guys.
Okay, back up to Jim. Good. So number 1 is position. Number 2 is focus. Number 3 is energy. That cup of coffee hasn't kicked in for me, but let's imagine that it has. So puppets up. Now, when you are performing, that energy comes from within and you start pushing it out. Here you need to push that energy up in through the arm from the center core, up into the arm, and push it out, okay? So you need to feel that energy push out.
Got it.
All right? So, and last thing we're gonna do is lip sync. Lip sync is one of the hardest things to do, and it's this simple. Open,
Open.
close. Open, close. All right, look at Bill. Open, close. Now, what you're doing with your open is you're opening this way, and that would be as if I was doing this. So imagine if the puppet's doing this, I'm doing this. Yeah,
wow.
so try to keep a little bit of control in here. Good. All right, so open, close. All right, last thing. Hi, my name is Jim.
Hi, my name is Michael.
Excellent. Hi, my name is Jim.
Hello, my name is Bill.
We are going to do another workshop. Hi, my name is Jim.
Hi, my name is Karen.
Beautiful. Hi, my name is Jim.
Hi, Jim. Glad to see you.
Can I tell you how much I love you, Iris?
We've done drumming. Now we're doing puppets. This is.
Hello.
But we're going to have to call it quits here, unfortunately. This has been terrific. This has been more fun than we've had in a while. I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you all had a good time as well. I want to thank our guest, Jim Hammond. And if you have any interest in going to theater, and we figure you do since you're watching us, go to floridatheateronstage.com for a complete list of what's showing now and in the future. But more importantly, we hope you come back to see us next week at Spotlight on the Arts.